Hello, Blenders, and welcome to episode number 292 of ReelBlend, a podcast that's trying to figure out how the Beekeeper fits into the Fast and Furious saga. Maybe a Vin Diesel post-credit scene, I'm hoping. It's all about bees and family. My name is Sean O'Connell. I'm the managing editor here at Cinema Blend, starting 2024 off with a bang. Yes, Gabe.
Do you think in the Beekeeper, Jason Statham has a quote where he says, "You don't know bees, but you're about to."
I hope so.
Oh, nice.
I hope so. Or when he knocks somebody out, he calls him honey.
Yeah.
And then just like knocks him honey.
Kev, did you recognize my fast quote?
Oh, I did for sure.
I mean, it's a movie I don't even
fantastic. I think you did. I think Gabe secretly is a massive Fast and Furious fan.
Why just so upset.
He's put on this whole facade that he's just doesn't.
What's more likely, that he's secretly a massive Fast fan, or that like you actually really dislike Nolan, but you've just like fallen into this character and now you've like Daniel Day-Lewis yourself and don't know how to break character?
Could you imagine if it was like all a bit? Like I wasted all this time on this.
Like every time Kevin watches Oppenheimer, he's like, "It's so boring. All they do is talk about physics."
He still watched it 14 times.
Yeah. To commit to the character.
Of course. Commit to the bit, baby.
I'm method.
To quote John David Washington, you didn't commit.
By the way, Kev, it's coming back to IMAX 70 millimeter.
Oh, I know. And I'm going. Oh, gosh. Am I going? Of course I'm going. I already thought about like where I'm going to see it, how I'm going to see it again.
What it's going to wear.
Yeah, I can't wait. What I'm going to wear. Yeah. I might wear this.
I wish you could go to the live performance with the orchestra.
Yeah, for
That's
people who don't know
what
Sean's talking about. Yeah, I think it's next week. I know we'll dive into our normal housekeeping, but there's a show in LA. It's sold out, but they're going to have Ludwig score the Oppenheimer movie live while it plays. And I think Nolan's doing an introduction. It sounds like Disneyland. It sounds amazing. I want to go so bad, but
should be pretty great.
It's during the week. Yeah.
Well, anyway, on this week's show, our first of the year 2024, we are going to be going through ReelBlend's top 5 most anticipated films of the calendar year of 2024. We're going to catch up on a couple of things we didn't get to review, including Rebel Moon, and then a few titles that we got to over the break that were like, let's catch up on these things because it got super busy at the end of the year. We want to talk about a couple of different titles that we know you guys are excited for. And then hopefully if we have time at the end of this week's episode, we have a game to round out our first year of the show. I know people have been asking about the draft and the results of last year's draft. Gabe, what's the plan? We're going to do that next weekend, hopefully, or next week?
It'll be a couple weeks.
Couple weeks?
Yes,
okay.
We'll do that all together. We'll reveal the winner, and then we'll dip right into the next draft.
And for new listeners, this is like a fantasy football type of draft we do with the movies, and it's really fun. And throughout what was interesting over the past couple of years was with the pandemic and delays and things like that. People's picks would have, right? People's picks had to be like switched out, and then you had to choose another movie that you necessarily didn't want to have at that round of your draft. So maybe this year. I'm very interested to see what the results are. We'll see.
Wait, Sean, didn't you like lose Dune and you're like, well, I guess I'll take Wonka?
No, I didn't take Wonka, but this is really funny because one of our regular listeners, Harry Lichtman, direct messaged me and he was like, this shows how involved our listeners are. They were like, hey, what did you get in replacement of Dune? And I'd even forgotten I had Dune until Gabe came to us and he was like, you got to pick one of these titles because it was all that was left coming out. And I didn't get Wonka, but I think I got something that might have helped me out. I think I picked a pretty good title.
Damn it.
Yeah.
We shall see. Yeah.
I will say, I was going to mention it then, but since you did, Sean did give up Spider-Verse to take Dune 2, and then Dune 2 dropped.
Oh,
yeah.
And that was pretty dramatic.
Wow. That's
pretty
so
dramatic.
unlike
okay,
you.
I'm so excited about this. See, this is what I love whenever we put like a year between episodes, that like we're recapping things that we did, but it's like I'm hearing it for the first time because I have I completely forgot about all of that.
Yeah. Well, in a couple weeks, at the end of the show, or you'll see next week kind of what we have going on. So it'll be a couple weeks until we get to that, but it'll be a fun show.
Wait a second. Really cool. I know we got to move on, but Sean, you said Oppenheimer's coming back to IMAX. Spider-Verse is coming back as well.
Spider-Verse is coming back also. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Gotta mention
in
that,
IMAX.
man. Yeah.
I know. In
Yeah.
IMAX. I'm
Yeah.
super excited for that.
Couple weeks.
If you're watching
Come
us on
Finch and
YouTube.
IMAX.
Thank you very much for joining us on YouTube. Please head down, give us a like and a subscribe.
Yet.
Join us here each week. For our audio listeners, if you want to join us in video form, head to youtube.com/ReelBlend Podcast. Of course, available all the different places you get your audio needs met. If you would like to get ReelBlend Premium, it gets you an ad-free version of the show and a newsletter from myself every other Friday. Check the description for information on where to sign up. So no guest this week. Hollywood is slowly dragging itself out of the holiday malaise. If you've been doing this long enough, you realize that right around December 9th and 10th, people stop working. And there might be like a blitz of like press opportunities leading up to that. And then you don't get people doing anything until January, which is why in January you get titles like The Beekeeper, and The Book of Clarence, which I'm hearing good things about each of those titles, to be honest with you. But January has been a dumping ground over the years. And so we instead are now taking this opportunity to look ahead to ReelBlend's top 5 most anticipated. We all gave Gabe our individual lists. And then, Gabe, why don't you take it away and explain to the people how you've come up with what we're going to talk about?
I would just like really quick. Have we done introductions yet?
Sort of. So it's fine. You all have lower thirds. You all have lower thirds. I'm Jake.
I like this.
The blonde guy's Kevin. The other guy's Sean.
You know what? I got to break the formula at some point,
It's okay. This is perfect.
It's all right.
It's all right.
We're
year.
back. We're rusty. We take 1 week off.
The episode where I was going to get first introduction. Now we'll skip.
Yes,
No guarantees.
that's why.
No guarantees.
To explain for the people at home, if you've just joined us for the first time, us doing a top 5 most anticipated, or you just listened to our top 10 of the year, we do this a little bit differently. Instead of getting top 10s from all of them, and then we go through each of them individually, I got a top 5 from all Sean, Jake, and Kevin to create one ReelBlend top 5 overall. I am simply going to reveal ReelBlend's top 5 one by one, and we'll have a brief discussion about the aspects of each of those movies and why we're excited about it. To give a little bit more background, if it's number 1 on a list, it gets the most points. If it's number 5 on a list, it gets the least points. I also had these gentlemen send me a couple honorable mentions, which are worth half a point each. And I've also added a new element, which I explained to you guys before the show, to give some weight to a title being on more than one list. So if it's on 2 of your 3 lists, it gets an additional half a point. If it's on all 3 of your lists, it gets an additional point, which made for some interesting tiebreakers. It ended up being good. And I think I'm going to do that moving forward. But it should be fun.
Well, weirdly, with the news that Oppenheimer was getting re-released, Kevin put it on his list.
It's true. Yeah, it kind of ruined everything for him. All right, we want to dive in with our number 5.
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
And we don't know this list yet. By the way,
because we haven't shared it.
Audience.
Can I say something really quick? I don't know how, if you guys, I felt a little underwhelmed drafting my top 5 because I felt like when we draft for 2023, I was just telling Gabe, I was drafting based on filmmakers. Like, we have new Nolan, we have new Denis, we have new Scorsese, and we have new Fincher. And I felt like this year was basically, it was less filmmaker driven and more like, well, that's a sequel to a movie I like. That's a sequel to a movie. It's more. I don't know. I just like. I even texted Gabe. I was like, I feel like I'm missing. There's got to be something. There's got to be more than this. But I'm worried that there's not.
No, they'll surface. I think we'll start to see a lot of those projects.
What's fun is so you guys don't know each other's lists. You send them to me privately. And sometimes one will pop up and I go, ooh, I wonder, like Jake, you had one that I wonder if Sean forgot about this one or if it didn't make it. Cause I'm like, I feel like he might've added this, but we'll find out when we get to some honorable mentions. Yes, Kevin.
So for example, the second Spider-Verse film, the second part of that does not have an official release date and probably will end up in 2025. Does that count?
That's why I didn't draft it.
Yeah, I did not draft it. for that reason.
Yeah, Jake reached out to me about that and asked, and I said, I feel like for anticipated, you got to be able to anticipate something, and we're just anticipating. When is it happening?
Even before the strikes, I remember like when Spider-Verse came out this past summer. I remember walking out of that theater going, "Oh, we're not getting the third one in March. We're definitely not getting the third one in March." And then the two strikes happened, which so.
And the last that I read, I think it was Phil Lord, was like, it'll release when it's ready, which is great, but also means could be whenever.
Because remember, they also came under a lot of speculation about the animators and kind of the hours of their work, and so I think they're going to have to. And again, this is all alleged and it's all been reported online. You can find it anywhere online, but it is interesting. I bet you that then changed the working method of how the second one's going to come out.
Yeah,
and I'd rather they wait. To be honest with you,
take your time.
I'd rather they wait. Yeah, come up with the proper conclusion.
And I wonder if they'll bring in other animators again, like they did on like if you go back and find our interview with Phil and Chris and the directors of Across the Spider-Verse. There's a great story about the animator they brought in to do the Lego sequence. I wonder if they're going to source out to other people to do other animation jobs. So it'll be fascinating.
Cool. I imagine. Yeah. Okay. Number 5, ReelBlend's number 5 most anticipated movie of 2024 is Deadpool 3.
Number 5. That's low.
Deadpool 3. This was on Kevin's list, but it was on Jake and Sean's honorable mentions.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who are you guys?
Well, let me explain
Sean
why.
Levy.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sean.
I'm excited for it because it's Marvel's only film coming out next year. And if they truly are trying to move back towards a model of quality over quantity, then I'm hoping that they're using this time to fully focus on that movie, 100% and make it as good as it can possibly be. And I have high hopes that, with Ryan Reynolds and bringing Hugh Jackman back and Sean Levy directing it, it's just, it feels like it has the possibility of falling into a lot of regurgitating a lot of characters that we've seen, and that I might feel similar to it the way I felt about Doctor Strange when they just rolled in all these characters who are multiversal characters, and I didn't feel a lot of attention to them or attraction to them, and then they were dead. And so I'm really hoping, until we know more about it, that the story more warrants, bringing these guys back. Because I'm being completely honest with you, with talking to Mangold recently for the Indiana Jones movie and him making jokes about how, like, hey, you never really know when the last time these people are going to go is. He seemed a little disappointed in Jackman coming back. And so I want a legit reason why Hugh Jackman is coming back for this. So, once we know more, and I think we'll get a trailer at the Super Bowl for it, and then maybe my position will change. But for now, it's honorable mention.
I honestly, the couple things, there's a lot of things you brought up that I actually agree with, but weirdly it's my number 2 most anticipated of next year or this year. And the couple reasons. The biggest reason why it's number 2, the first Deadpool is one of my favorite movies ever. I love that film so much. Emotionally, action, comedy, and the budgetary aspects of it. Necessity is the mother of invention, how they made that film, how it got leaked, and the whole story is amazing. I'm so overly saturated with Marvel, and we all have been for years now, that there hasn't been a Marvel project that I've genuinely been like super anticipating for a long time. And I know that I'll never feel the same way again that I did walking into Endgame, because that's just 10 years and 20 plus films being built up. But my hope, and I think Ryan Reynolds is a very smart and very interesting business person, but also comedian, actor. I think Ryan knows what you're saying. And I think that he's fully aware of that thought process. And I think he's fully aware that Marvel's become oversaturated. And again, I'm not speaking for him. This is just my thought process. And I think with Sean Levy, he's built a great relationship with Free Guy and the Atom Project. They have a really good working relationship. The Hugh Jackman returning thing, I'm going to sound hypocritical because I always think about Marvel and having no stakes, right? And like if they were to bring back Iron Man, that would ruin that amazing scene in Endgame.
Yeah.
Because it's Deadpool and because it's so meta, you know that Ryan's gonna play with that. Like he's gonna play. I bet you there's a joke in the movie where Mangold shows up and says, "Wait, I thought we killed this character." You know, that's such a Deadpool thing to do. Like he could call Mangold and say, "We're gonna bring back your character," and it would completely work in the Ryan. If you're watching this, you can use that. No, I was kidding. But in all honesty, though, I think it's because of the fact that it's gonna be fresh. It's going to be R-rated. And I think with Echo coming out, which we'll talk about because they're dropping all the episodes at once on the 9th, which is an interesting thing. It's not a week-to-week thing, which I found fascinating. That'll be your first kind of look in that R-rated aspect of the Marvel world. And I think Ryan Reynolds, think about how badly he wanted Hugh Jackman to be in a Deadpool film. There is no way he's going to mess this up. And I think that he understands the weight of it. And I think everything you just said, he's completely aware of. And I think he's aware that we need to shift Marvel back to being exciting. And what's weird about it is with the R rating, it's going to be fascinating how it does at the box office. We know the first Deadpool did obviously extremely well. The second one did well as well. But within the Marvel world, how it's going to affect kids that want to go see this movie kind of thing.
Yeah, sure.
Now that it's MCU. So it's fascinating. I can't wait.
It's our number 5. Jake, did you have anything to add to that? I know a lot was said.
I mean, look, I am hesitantly excited about it. You know, I don't want to rehash what you guys just said, but I do think it is at risk of, falling into some like, hey, look who it is traps. And so that's and because but I will say that I have heard that obviously everything's speculative right now, but the idea is that Deadpool has to pop into different universes to get the best version of every character, that's sort of what is helping me wrap my brain around the Hugh Jackman thing, which is that in my mind, that Wolverine is still dead. And this one is so wild because we're getting sort of a live action version of X-Men, the animated series. It's helping me sort of separate the two. I still am able to accept Wolverine's death, but also get excited about the fact that we're getting
I'm with you.
Wolverine.
I'm with you, but I feel like the separation is more dryly Fox versus Disney because you could make that exact. That's the thing everyone has said about Iron Man. What if you just popped into another universe and it's a different Tony Stark? Couldn't you compartmentalize that your Tony Stark is still dead? And we would definitely be like, if it's Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man in any capacity, we'd be bummed. Yeah. I think the only difference is that there's nothing else from Fox that's coming other than Deadpool. And
I mean, without giving anything away,
I think it's still disappointing. I'm hopeful that it'll be entertaining and that it'll be good.
But Ryan's aware of this, I would imagine.
Yeah.
He's aware of this.
Deadpool movies don't have a lot of rewatchability factor for me.
The first one does.
Oh, I think the second one's good too.
Being aware and commenting on it, like being self-aware, is not doesn't absolve the fact that you're still doing the same. Sure. You know what I mean? So it's not that it won't be entertaining. It's not that he won't find a great way that'll make it worth it. And I trust that Hugh Jackman wouldn't do it unless he felt like it was good. But I just wanted to push back on the multiverse thing, as I don't think that's kind of a cop out. It's still the guy in the role. Right.
Sean brought up an interesting point about Multiverse of Madness, and then we'll move on. And Jake, real quick, we'll get to you as well. But the scene in Multiverse of Madness when all those characters came out, Krasinski and Patrick Stewart, that was awful. And there is absolutely no way that Ryan's going to do that in this. I mean, that was such a throwaway, terrible sequence.
Here's everything that you guys were talking about that you wanted.
Oh. Right. Yeah. And it was and it didn't even look like the actors were all even in the same space. It looked like they all shot it individually. It was so bad. Madness was just, Multiverse of Madness was just bad in general because it just felt like it was like half of a Sam Raimi movie and half of a Kevin Feige film. It was like it never found its voice. But we'll see. I'm very excited. I mean, it's going to be great. I mean, we never would have gotten Logan, by the way, without Deadpool. Think about that for a second.
Sure.
Deadpool 1 allows Logan to get made.
Birds of Prey also. Margot just gave Deadpool credit for succeeding, and then Warner Brothers agreed to let her make Birds of Prey R-rated.
It's almost like a payback
part.
Yeah. He was like, hey, we never would have gotten Logan made. Let me come back and help you for a second.
Well, we're ready.
All right, Deadpool 3, our number 5. Our number 4, sticking in the genre, is Joker 2. It was on all 3 of your lists. Joker 2.
Do we know how to say the title? Does anyone know how to say it?
I think it's Folie à Deux. I think you could Frenchify that a little bit more. It's a little Americanized the way I said it.
I've been wondering how we're all going to start pronouncing it once we get to covering it. Like, and we're going to have to, because like on the air today or the other day when I did my most anticipated, I just said Joker 2 because I didn't want to botch it.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yes, I think it's like fully a duh technically, but like, are we all going to sit here for a year and say duh and piss people off? Probably not. Fully a do, I think is how people will say it. It ended up on all three of your lists. Sean's number 5 and Jake and Kevin's number 4.
Let's start the conversation by recognizing Joaquin Phoenix as friend of the show, Joaquin Phoenix, and his next performance as Joker. One of the reasons why I put this on my list of the top 5s, and similar to Jake, I was hesitant about the fact of the number of sequels that I was choosing. But the way that the first one ended gave them a lot of latitude, I feel, to still go out and tell any kind of story they want to tell. Because so much of the first one was like, how much of this is in his mind and how much of it really happened? And did he ever really leave the Institute? And was he really doing most of the things that he did? And how much impact is he going to have? Now, you could either go the tract and say like, no, he did everything that we watched him do in that. And he's essentially launched this army of, Joker clone criminals who are going to be out taking over Gotham. Like, what if it even gets around to the point where it involves a Batman? Like, I know that Jake sort of crossed, that line and said, well, will they ever meet? And Joaquin didn't really want to explore that.
Would that mean that there's 3 Batmen potentially in DC? If there's
a lot more than that because Clooney exists.
Well, no. But I mean,
let's
allow that to be the past. But I mean, currently they'd be making the Batman 2.
Sure.
There'd be a Batman in Joaquin's Joker, and then you would presume there's a Batman in whatever.
Yeah,
working on
because I honestly
universe.
think that, not to use the Elseworld titles, but I feel like these movies, the Joker movies, are existing on their own little platform that doesn't affect anything else narratively. So you could introduce another Batman into there if you wanted to.
But we've already seen, unless a massive amount of time has passed, we've already seen Bruce Wayne and he's a child. We would need a 15 or 20 year time gap before he's even in like year 1 territory.
Or we just get some badass kid that knows karate or something, and we just have a really young Batman.
But at the same time, too, I am really intrigued by Lady Gaga as a choice to play Margot. Again, to sort of reference a very recent Margot Robbie, or to play Harley, I'm sorry, to reference Margot's comments on Variety recently. She was talking about her potential future continuing to play Margot Robbie in the James Gunn universe. And she said she kind of viewed that character as somebody who it's more exciting to see new people take the characters on. And she got a run. She did 3 movies. Maybe it's time to pass the baton and see what else somebody can do. And if you're going to pass the baton to Lady Gaga, then I'm incredibly intrigued, especially when you hear that the two of them went super method on the set. And so that's why I made my list.
Jake?
Here's what I'll say is that I am both nervous and excited for one very specific reason, which is that Todd Phillips and I, at the Joker junket, a portion of my TV interview was both of us agreeing that Joker should not have a sequel. Because I think around the time that Joker came out, he had made a comment about like, I don't know, like if this is going to be the sequel kind of movie, this is kind of probably going to be one and done for me. And I remember telling him, dude, I don't want a sequel. And his response being, yeah, me neither. So it makes me nervous that he was so adamant along with me about it not needing a part 2. But I guess what excites me about that is like something must have, other than the fact that the movie made $1 billion. and I guess Joaquin too. Joaquin doesn't strike me as the type to come back and do a movie for the money. So I feel like something had to be there to intrigue him as an artist. I mean, because also you have to keep in mind that's his Oscar movie. So he's not going to
Lady
want to come
Gaga
back.
Also doesn't need the money.
Yeah,
to her
exactly.
Credit,
Yeah. I can't imagine that these people are going to come be a part of this just to get a paycheck or just to get a part 2. That was the success of Joker was such an anomaly that to do anything remotely close to a lesser version of Joker would dilute the first one. So I really want to believe that they wouldn't do it unless they had something truly special.
Yeah. Kev, did you get a chance to discuss?
Yeah, no, I mean, I love that the whole team is back. Lawrence back as DP, Hilder back with the composing. It's the same team that made the first one, same filmmaker. As Jake said, I don't. Something must have changed. They must have found a story. I mean, this is going to be a musical, from what we understand. Is Joaquin Phoenix going to be singing as Joker? Is that what we're anticipating? I know that Lady Gaga will sing, but I just can't imagine Joaquin singing unless he's sang somewhere else before in a movie and I've missed it somewhere.
Johnny Cash. He sang Johnny Cash.
You're right. How did I forget that? Well,
Yeah.
Johnny Cash is a different type of voice, though.
It is.
Johnny Cash is almost like a speaking voice.
It would be very funny if Joker sounded like Johnny Cash. In
Johnny Cash. But like Johnny
Joker
Cash's
Cash.
voice is very spoken, in my opinion. So I can't imagine him going like
to
duetting.
your point, like to speculate, the musical aspect to me sounds like a Harley Quinn thing. That would be Harley Quinn's, imagination
Interesting.
and whatever her psychoses that we're gonna see through her character. I could see like the musical being a fictitious thing that happens through the eyes of Harley Quinn. And that's a great reason to get Lady Gaga to sing for you.
Well, and to the point, I could see this next movie being completely through her point of view.
That would be
like
the sort
this
of
one.
thing that would say, well, it's a sequel, but it's really not. So I'll do it. That, that could be that sort of-
exactly. Yeah. Did Joaquin have a rap career when he was doing his weird?
That was a fake. Remember, that was the bit where it was called "I'm Still Here." It was the Casey Affleck movie where he played
Yeah.
It was.
He did the whole Letterman thing.
Was he doing
bit.
a
It was
rap
whole
thing too, though?
Yeah, I think the rap part of it, if I remember correctly, was part of the method part of the part. It was like I don't think he legitimately went out and like cut records and like I think he was part of the character.
The story was like he was quitting acting to
love
become
him.
a rapper or something like that. Wasn't it like that's kind of like part of it?
Okay.
The Letterman interview is one of the greatest interviews I've ever seen on TV. It's so
It's wild.
But my
awkward.
favorite one is the follow-up interview where Joaquin sits down and like him and Letterman just sort of stare at each other for a second. Like, because I don't think Letterman knew that it was a bit until long after, like in the moment, I don't think he knew it was a bit. So when they finally got to sit down and Joaquin was back as Joaquin, Letterman just, because Letterman's not someone, you don't go on his show and like screw with Letterman. So I think him just sort of looking at him was just sort of like,
yeah.
Okay.
Do you remember the last line, or one of the last lines of the interview? Like Letterman on the first go around was like, "I'm sorry that Joaquin couldn't be here tonight."
Yeah.
And like, he's sitting right there. That was such a great thing. But yeah, I forget sometimes. Like, it's so funny you brought up Johnny Cash, Sean. Like I forget the amount of roles and the differing roles he's played. Like he's so in my mind right now as Joker and Napoleon that I just completely forget about like her and Walk the Line, James Mangold,
Or
right?
Inherent Vice. Like he's been in some terrific movies.
I mean, he's one of the best actors. All right, who's a better actor? Joaquin Phoenix or Leonardo DiCaprio?
Oh, geez. I mean,
Wow.
this is why I don't do lists, guys.
Not an easy question.
Well, it's just not a fair question.
Yeah, it is. They're
2
two
plus 2
actors.
2 plus 2 is 4. That's a fair question.
I think
that's like the
Joaquin
Oscars.
disappears more, but I enjoy watching Leonardo on the screen more.
Interesting. I think I would agree with that.
I
Sean?
appreciate more Joaquin's ability to try different directors. Like he'll go do an Ari Aster's Beau's Not Afraid. He'll do a historical epic with Ridley in the same year, essentially. Then he'll go back and do a Joker. And I wish Leo would challenge himself a little bit more. I feel like he's stuck in a rut with Martin Scorsese. God bless him. But
It's a pretty good run. That's a pretty good
test
run.
himself. Yeah, exactly. If you're going to pick a rut, that's a
I
rut.
still think DiCaprio is the best actor working today, but now that I posed that question, it's I don't even know how I'd answer that.
It's tough.
Gabe?
Yeah, I disagree with the question. Nothing
Well,
against
dude,
you.
it's like the Oscars we put up against actors versus
And I
actors.
don't vote for the
It's a choice.
Well, that's a performance. It's you're talking about a split. What you're talking about a better actor. It's like, well, they never did the same role at the same time. Like,
But it's
how do you
it's a legit
compare
question.
them? No, I understand the question. I wouldn't begin. I wouldn't know where to begin. How to compare them?
I have a question. Does Joaquin get a Best Actor nomination for Napoleon?
No.
Is that
No.
is that even
It's not even
not a
it's not
chance.
even-
In the
no,
top
Not a
20.
chance?
No.
not top 20? What?
Boy, all right.
I mean,
Scar, I'm sorry. My bad.
Sorry.
Can
I
we
think he's
go ahead?
great
I mean,
in
with
movie.
that attitude, can we go ahead and vote for the Oscars? Can we do our Oscar bet right now? Like it's like I like
I'm
that's
asking
it.
a question. That's all. I just asked a question.
There's no
Sean, you're
way
fired. Sean's
that's
out of the
happening.
show. He's not allowed back.
No way.
He's not allowed back.
There's 5 people who are below the line of that are not the ones that we think are going to get in, that are
Right.
like, there's probably 10 at least ahead of him. And again, he's good in Napoleon, but it's not like, that's not an Oscar.
Hearing a
performance.
very strong surge for Zac Efron and the Iron Claw.
I still don't think he gets in.
I do like that surge. I don't think it happens. But right now, as you guys can all see, we're going back and forth between Cooper, Giamatti, and
I was gonna say I'm
Murphy.
feeling the surge for Giamatti.
I
I'm
finally
feeling
caught
for
up.
Cooper.
This tangent of all tangents. I finally caught up on the Holdovers over break.
And
What'd you think?
First of all, it was the perfect movie to watch while I was on a little holiday break.
Beautiful,
right?
Couldn't have been better. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
right?
Wasn't
It's
it
a great
wonderful?
movie. Yeah,
And
just
how
a great
good
movie.
is that kid, Dominic Sessa? It's his first movie.
Dude, really
you know,
good.
it wouldn't surprise me if he snuck into supporting actor.
I think so too. People like him. People
Yeah.
like that performing.
I
Dave
think I
Fiennes
could see
probably-
him taking De Niro's spot.
Yeah, I mean, Dominic's amazing. That movie. Jake and I said this sometimes. Like there are certain films you can put in front of anybody, and they're gonna like it. Holdovers is just, you know, that I know my grandma's gonna like it, my mom's gonna like it, my dad's. You know, it's just such a weirdly heartwarming film.
Yeah.
for some reason. Yeah.
We're going to throw to a quick break, but on the other side, we'll pick back up with the list, so stay tuned. In lieu of a number 3, we have 2 films tied for second.
Ooh.
oh, interesting.
I will start with the first. These are in no particular order, except for reverse alphabetical, I guess, technically.
By the way, before you mention these, I'm gonna be very mad if my number 3 didn't make it into our top 5.
It's funny you mentioned that, Kevin, because our tied for second, first of the 2, is Bad Boys 4.
Yes, that's gotta be
was-
Sean. That's
That
gotta be
was
Sean.
that was on Sean and Kevin's list.
Yes.
It was Kevin's number 3 and Sean's number 3.
Damn
Yes.
right.
I went back and rewatched part 3 the other day, and
So good.
those guys, Bilal and Adil.
You mean the movie that has the title that should be this one's title?
I'm not going to hold that against it. That's
That
fine.
is funny though.
They should just call this Bad Boys 5.
That's actually pretty good.
That would make as
Skip
much
4
sense.
altogether. Someone said Bad Boys Forever, which I thought could work. But
Their chemistry is just so good that I will watch the two of them play these roles
best.
forever. They understand their parts and they bring exactly what I want them to bring to the table. I will say that part 3 got a little convoluted with its villain, and there's deep emotional ties to people that Mike Lowry knows. But when you get down to the action is terrific. Bilal and Adil are fantastic.
the Joey Pantoliano arc was so devastating. That scene
It's good.
that destroyed me.
It's very good. The Michael Bay cameo at the wedding was fantastic with the Bay circular shot. Yeah,
You got the
the shot. So it felt like part 3 was them trying to figure out like, hey, could we do this again? And they proved they could. And now I think with 4, they're going to be like, all right, now we're all in. Now we're going to give you the Bad Boys movie you've been waiting for. So
Do you think
I'm
there's a
excited.
Batgirl in it, or can we sneak some footage like on a TV
Some
screen?
footage spliced in. Yeah,
pretty-
why not?
That's pretty
That'd be
funny.
so
What if that's the mission of the film?
Who's
is
Bad
they're
Boys?
trying-
What studio's Bad Boys?
Sony.
Sony? Okay,
Sony.
yeah. Well, weirder things have happened.
What's interesting, well, Adil and Bilal obviously are back to direct, which I'm very excited about. Bad Boys 2 is one of my favorite movies of all time. Like, that movie is something I can just watch on a loop. It is incredibly fun. And then obviously, as Sean knows, Bad Boys 3 was shockingly great. Because like when Michael Bay wasn't involved in it, I'm like, there's no way this is going to be good. And then you basically had two fans like Sean and I making a Bad Boys film, but they're actually talented filmmakers at the same time. And it was just the Joe Pantoliano arc in that third one. Like I left that movie emotional, man. It was like really well done. And I just, like you said, I can't wait to see them back together. I just love Mike Lowry. I love that whole chemistry between Martin Lawrence and Will Smith is just incredible. And the way they deal with their families and all those things that kind of play into the world they're dealing with is just, it's just so much fun. To me, when I sit down for a Bad Boys film, I just feel like I can fully escape in a way that like, and get that comedy, get that action. That's why Bad Boys 2 has everything I want in a film. It's like, it's comedy,
comfort.
Action, drama.
It's comfort.
Yeah. Yeah. And Bad Boys
It's
1,
just comfort.
I need to, it's so great too. So yeah, Bad Boy. I'm so happy that made our list. I was wondering if anybody else, I mean, I guess I should have figured Sean would have, because I know you like Bad Boys as much as I do, but Jake, you love Bad Boys too, but you didn't love the third one,
I
right?
didn't love three.
Yeah.
So my excitement for this series has tapered a bit. Yeah, I love two, but like, you know,
What happened to
it's-
3?
like,
Too
I
bloated?
saw
The story was too bloated?
Yeah,
or?
I gotta be honest. As you guys, I've forgotten so much about it. As you guys are like saying things, I'm like, oh yeah, that was a thing. And I do remember I remember one of my major complaints being that the third act tied to this random ass plot point and connection that at no point we ever actually saw in the series. And
It's about the
it was
father
like,
thing?
I think so. That sounds right. I remember that really bothering me. And it was. I remember it was one of those movies that came out, and I remember thinking like, okay, like that was fine for a part 3, I guess, but I couldn't care less about 4, if I'm being honest.
All right. Well, we'll see. I mean, I'm very excited, but you said we have a tie for 3, Gabriel?
This is tied for 2. Tied for 2.
Oh, tied for 2.
So the other film, tied for 2. You know, we said Sean didn't like our top 10 of the year. I think this is going to be Sean's going to like this because I think everything was on his list.
I feel like I'm going to be the one that doesn't like our most anticipated 5.
I want to hear your list.
Jake, you didn't get Bad Boys, but tied for second with Bad Boys 4 is Alien Romulus, the new Fede Alvarez Alien sequel.
Oh, that's on my list too.
It is. It is. This was Sean's number 4.
You gave Bad Boys way more enthusiasm than you gave Alien.
I thought he was telling me that I didn't pick this.
No. As
I did.
opposed to you not liking our top 10 of the year, this one I think you're gonna like. Yes,
I do. I'm excited for this. Jake, you take it away.
Jake, this was your number 2.
Yeah. I just love the Alien franchise as a whole. Even like honestly, and I loved Prometheus and I loved Covenant, and even like the lesser Alien films, like I would still take those over most monster movies these days. And obviously Ridley and James Cameron's originals are masterpieces. But this is in addition to the reason this ranks second for me, because in addition to bringing the xenomorph back to the big screen, Fede, like I loved what he did with Evil Dead, and I think he's a phenomenal a horror director, and him being let loose with a xenomorph. And apparently Ridley saw an early cut of it, and he is someone who does not hide how he feels about sequels to his films.
If you're looking for examples, check one of the 2 interviews on this very show.
Yes. So I just have a feeling that movie is going to be just sneaky awesome and come in and just blow us all away.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited for that reason too. I think Fede Alvarez has sort of proven himself as a terrific filmmaker. I really liked Don't Breathe even too. Mm-hmm. And I like the fact that this is a solo standalone story in the series. It's not trying to be a sequel or prequel to anything that exists. I do like Prometheus a lot. I don't love Covenant as much, but I feel like I need to go back and rewatch it. But I'm ready for just like a new set of people who get dropped into a world where the xenomorph is creating havoc for them. So I'm in 100%.
There was an Alien, for gamers who listen to the show. There was an Alien survival game,
Isolation,
a couple years back, Isolation, which was just brilliant and legitimately
Did you
scary.
play it?
I did.
Nice.
I loved it.
I love when Jake plays a game. He's particular.
Which I'm very excited about. Like, I actually am gonna have to go buy a PlayStation for that new Jurassic Park game. Dude,
it looks good.
Have you guys seen the trailer for that?
Yeah,
it's a new Jurassic Park video game, Kevin, that takes place one day after the original film. So the plot point is that they evacuated everyone off the island, but accidentally left one person, and you're the one person. So like Alan Grant's hat is still on the road, and like all the cars are still there so you're going through all the original. Anyway, there's an Alien film that's just like that. Alien Isolation. It was a great game. Terrified the shit out of me. Brought the terror back to the xenomorph, and Fede Alvarez has shown that he knows how to do that type of terror with Don't Breathe. So I'm really hoping that he sort of brings that version of his horror back into the series, because I feel like they've turned more so into action films. So I would love if they went back to Ridley's more like we don't see the alien that much and use him sparingly.
Well, I want a good cast. Like Alien and Aliens have great ensemble casts.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get over the nightmares I had after Don't Breathe and the turkey baster.
That's right.
I will never
Xenomorph with a turkey baster. I'm out. I'll pass out in the theater.
The ending of Don't Breathe will forever be in my mind. I wish I could erase that part from my head. It's so disturbing. It's so disturbing.
Prometheus does not get enough love, and one thing that I don't think gets talked about enough. Alien, of course, has the chestburster scene. Phenomenal. Talked about it on the show. Ridley Scott talked about it on the show in part. But Prometheus has what I consider very much an homage to that, to 11, which is her performing her own C-section to get it out. Like that's such a way to like take the chestburster scene and then go, now imagine it's even more excruciating and drawn out.
You know what's interesting about that scene, Gabe, was the if I remember correctly, was the use of mirrors in that scene? Because remember, wasn't she working on herself?
She had to like look at it. Yeah, she did it to herself. Yeah.
And there's something about when filmmakers use mirrors that I find interesting. One of the most, like, especially in that scene, but like one of my favorite ones ever was in the first Avatar. It was like this like 3D shot where like Stephen Lang's in one of the pods and they have like this almost like rear view mirror thing. And the way the 3D operated with it was so wild. And I remember seeing Prometheus. There's just something fascinating about how filmmakers can use mirrors in a scene. And I remember that scene in particular that Gabe's talking about. Like there was something just so disturbing about the way the mirror caught. Like, you know how, because when we watch a film, we were watching it through the camera. But when you see the image that you're watching through a mirror that's shooting the image, it's just it just gives it some type of weird resonance that I can't explain. But I remember that terrifying me. That's a really interesting point. I never actually thought about that, Gabe, where that's kind of the equivalent of the chest burster.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. It's interesting. Yeah.
Love that scene.
Numi's great in that too.
Our number one. Those were our tied for second. Alien Romulus, which I think is a final title, but maybe that's a working title because it's kind of early. And Bad Boys 4.
Is Deadpool 3 the final title?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
We had it already, did we? We had it. It was a 5. It was a 5.
No, you meant the final title. Final title.
Is it the title of the movie?
Like, is that the title of the movie?
Oh, no. I think they're going to call it something else.
You think so?
I think they're going to work Wolverine into the title.
What if it's Deadpool 3, Hugh Jackman's back? Back in action.
Honestly, that'd be. I could see them doing that.
Dude, I mean, you're talking about the guy. Do you remember this trailer for Deadpool 2? And it was from the studio who killed Wolverine.
That's great.
And like that to me. And I was watching that today because I had to use Deadpool 2 footage for promoting, or my it was anticipated, and I was like, I forgot that Ryan put that in there.
Although the 3 of Hugh Jackman's claws. Wolverine's claws going through the logo is
that's true
pretty
too.
Great.
So maybe just call it Deadpool 3.
Dude, the first Deadpool junket, which is so cool, and I think about it now, it was in San Francisco during the Super Bowl, whatever year that was, like it was 2016, 2015. And Ryan Reynolds, they had it set up in a bar, and you had to throw darts at Hugh Jackman's Wolverine face. So you're sitting there talking to Ryan about Deadpool while you're throwing darts with Ryan Reynolds at a picture of Hugh Jackman. And it's like just to think full circle where we are with them now is just, it's just funny.
If you listen to the show at all, you can probably deduce that our number one.
Oh, I know it.
And I'll say this, our number one got the most points possible, I think, in this little game, in that it was your number one on all 3 of your lists, and that is Dune Part 2, baby. Dune Part 2, number one most anticipated movie of the year.
Shameless plug.
Looney Tunes.
I think this was on our list last year too, so you know, not much more we can say.
Find our interview with Denis for the first
Hands.
and Hans Zimmer, and like Dune 2 is going to be extraordinary. I can just feel the scope of it from the trailers. I want to see it in 143 so bad, 'cause I saw first Dune in 143 IMAX, which is the IMAX format that Nolan's films play in. But it's a remarkable. Greg Fraser, to me, like, that's the star. I mean, I love Denis, I love everybody involved in that film, but the way Greg shoots that, there's a shot in the new trailer. I don't know if Gabe, if you can explain it, because you read the book, but it's like, do you know what I'm talking about? Where it's like Chalamet's like really far in the distance. I
haven't seen the trailer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but so if anybody out there listening, I've been avoiding it because I'm going to see it.
It's just a really super blurry shot. As something powerful is happening with this character. And I don't know what happens later.
Sure.
But the way Fraser lends that it looks insane. And like, I'm just fascinated by the Austin Butler character. Now, for me personally, I have not read the books. So my arc and journey with Dune is I know the half of the story. I know where we ended up in the first part, and I have no idea what's coming next.
So you never saw the Lynch film?
Never saw the Lynch film. Never read the books.
There was a TV series, right, or TV movie or something.
It was called. It was on the Sci-Fi Channel. Sean's very. It was called, and that believe that was called Frank Herbert's Dune. William Hurt played Paul's father.
Oh, Paul's father.
Oh, wow. I'm very fascinated to see how this story ends, and I can't wait to see him riding the sandworm. It's going to be awesome. And one of the things that I remember Nolan saying about the first Dune was that it was like and I'm paraphrasing, it was like a great marriage of practical and CGI effects. Like, it was because the first Dune was shot so much on location. So when he does the sandworm, I'm very fascinated how that's going to look. I mean, I know we've seen clips of it and pieces of it, but that's a hard effect shot to pull off, to have an actor on something that big.
I wonder if we're even going to get a wide shot. Like, Denis doesn't like, it'd have to look really good.
Yeah.
Or extreme. It'd have to be like maybe an extreme wide shot.
Yeah,
but I just feel like a wide shot is always going to look a little awkward on a giant thing. But in Denis, I trust. So
I mean, go ahead.
He's had time to work on this, right? Because it was due last year. And
do you think it was done? And they just delayed it?
No, it's called Dune, Kev.
But no, I'm saying, do you think it was done?
I'm sure it was.
As good
done, but he could always have time to perfect it, right? He could always have time to go back in and refine,
which can be dangerous.
But I would see it more as additional time to improve visual effects.
I don't think that's even a question. The first one was flawless. I don't think you let them mess that up.
And it's not like rework the narrative, or work in another subplot. I think it's really just, we're making this look as great as it can look in the formats that we're choosing to release it. And what I love about it too is that we're getting it in March. Like, it feels like
aren't you a little bummed about that though?
No, not at all. I
only say that just because like there's a good chance that that's going to be our favorite film of the year. Yeah. And it's like opening a Christmas gift like on December 4th. Like it's kind of like, are we getting too much greatness too early?
Think about it this way, Jake. We can watch our favorite movie of the year all year long.
True. You could see it as many times as I saw Oppenheimer.
That's I plan to.
There's a lot. Like, Gabe, what is the most times you've seen a movie in theaters?
In theaters? Oh, I don't know. I've seen a movie in theaters. I'm trying to think. There's a movie that I know I took people to like 3 times. Come back to me. I know there's something. I haven't done it a lot. It's maybe like 3 times. Sean? It's maybe like 3 times.
I saw The Dark Knight 5 times before it came out.
Yeah.
And then one more time after it was released.
Insane.
I'm up to 9 on Trolls Band Together.
There's still time to get 10, baby.
He's on the edge of his seat. Do they get together? He never.
Do they?
Music's just so good.
And why do those 5 guys sound so familiar?
Why? Who is that?
I'm trying to think. I know there was a movie that like I went to, and then I went to a group of friends. Was like, you got to watch this, and I'll watch it with you. And I can't remember what the movie is. So I think it's only like maybe 3. Not something I do often. Maybe
I
4.
think I saw Top Gun Maverick quite a few times. It was the Top Gun Maverick's the most I've seen a film in recent memory.
Honestly, I think mine's Titanic. I think I saw Titanic like 7 times because I just kept bringing people back to it.
I know the most times I saw a movie in a day was Hot Rod. I saw 3 times in one day.
By
One
Titanic,
day?
though, I meant that I was on the actual Titanic, and I just kept revisiting my time spent on the boat. So,
Wait, Sean, we'll move on. A quick question. I remember when Titanic was out, it ran so long.
oh yeah,
Like I think it was in theaters for a year. And then, I mean, I remember buying the VHS and going to Blockbuster, get the reserved card and get the 2 VHSs, whatever. But I remember I think it was towards the latter part of the release, they started to put an intermission in the film. Did you ever experience that? I heard stories that like people would like, it was 3.5 hours, whatever it was. I just rewatched it, by the way, on 4K, and it looks extraordinary. True Lies, by the way, on 4K looks awful. And we can dive into that.
That's a bummer.
A different story later.
Well, because didn't they like? Yeah, it was.
but the Abyss looks good, right? Doesn't the Abyss the Abyss looks good?
I haven't watched Abyss yet, but I watched.
This looks good.
But I put, you guys know, I've been waiting for True Lies to come out on format and for years, and because it hasn't been available anywhere. The transfer that they did to this thing,
Oof.
there's shots of Tom Arnold's face that look like Harrison Ford's younger DH self in Indy 5.
Weird. Whoa, you're talking about the new
don't-
4K?
I don't know what they did to it, and someone online can.
I wonder
terrible.
if I was reading. I saw stills of it, and someone was talking about that they were using some sort of like digital enhancement
upping it,
sort of thing,
right?
Which I know that like when they up resolution, often like they'll do a little bit of like a pass of some of like the film grain or something. But the stills that I saw looked so like face smooth, like on a phone
like Polar
camera.
Express, yeah, like it was like.
I wonder if like
That's a weird because Abyss looks great.
well, I wonder what the story is, because that strikes me as maybe that's just something that the film negative that exists is not good or just didn't exist, and so they're just like upscaling some other version of it. I'm curious if that's one of those physical media, you know, film. We talk about film being stored in salt mines. If it's gone, it's gone. You know.
To Gabe's point, they usually, when you do a 4K transfer, like with 2001 and all these big movies that they bring back, they go back to the original camera negative and they scan it, and that's how they get the footage. But what I find fascinating about it is, like, for people out there who don't know exactly what we're referring to, The Abyss and Titanic haven't been available on any format for years. You can't buy them anywhere, rent them anywhere. They were just gone for some weird reason. And we've been waiting all this time, and then all of a sudden they come out. I haven't watched The Abyss 4K yet. I watched Titanic. Looks remarkable. Like, it looked better when I watched it on 4K than I remembered seeing it in 97. It looked remarkable. And then I was so excited. I'm like, yeah, True Lies time. I can't freaking wait. And then I'm watching it. I couldn't get through it. I was so disappointed.
Yeah. I meant to text you when I saw the stills, because I was like, there's no way that Kevin might be having a conniption fit right now at his TV.
I was upset.
That's what he's looking at. Yeah.
Yeah. What the upsetting part about it, Gabe, to be honest, is the fact that that's the only way you can watch it.
Yeah, there's got to be a story there.
Kevin's going to book flights on United just to be able to.
I used to.
Just to be able to watch it.
It's on Hulu. I don't know what conversion it is, but it's on Hulu.
Probably better than whatever.
I bet you the Hulu version is better. I bet you that's the original or one of the
That's
better.
what I wonder, if they took like Hulu has some 1080p version and the film's gone and they just up that. It just looks so weird. Anyway.
Every once in a while, Flo from Progressive pops up and she tells you you can earn 25% off
on Sifi,
and then she disappears.
I will say, just for people out there listening, if you haven't revisited Titanic in years, like, you sit down and watch that thing. I don't understand.
Yeah. It's so great.
It's incredible. It's
almost like it made a couple $1 million. It's so good.
But I mean, I've forgotten how great it was. Like, I knew it was great.
So good.
I knew it was great. But
can
damn,
we say one quick thing about Titanic? One of my pet peeves is the door argument, because there's clearly a moment in the film where he tries to get on the door with her and the door starts to tip.
Yes.
So, like, it's whenever someone tries to sound smart by like making the door argument on Titanic, what you're really saying is, I haven't seen that movie in a long time and I heard someone else say this thing, because If you've seen the film or you know the film, it addresses the fact that they both can't. It has nothing to do with like it's just that it tips. It tips.
Can I flip that in a way that maybe will make you feel nostalgic about that fact? That wouldn't happen today because as soon as someone said that, someone on Twitter would upload the video in high res and say, "No, you're wrong. This happens." But back in the day, we were just talking about it. The film left theaters.
Yeah.
Some people say it's a conversation and it grows into just a joke.
Yeah.
And no one references the movie. And these days you just get corrected.
Yeah.
So to me,
That's
maybe
true.
For yourself, maybe make you feel a little better about it.
That's fair. That's fair.
And the idea that people are being persnickety about that just shows you how great the film is.
Sure.
It's like, that's the one thing
that's the biggest dog you know about that movie.
That and the stars were in the wrong alignment. That too.
Yeah, but didn't Cameron go back and fix that?
He did.
Oh,
That's great.
Oh, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
I love him.
Probably the only post edit, because that's after the film came out, right, Jake?
Oh yeah, that was years and years after.
So and like I always give Lucas crap.
It was one of the re-releases, right? One of the
yeah. I always give Lucas crap for what he did with Star Wars. But see, the difference in Stars and what Lucas did in Star Wars is he actually changed character traits.
Yeah.
Like the Han Greedo thing changes who Han is.
Sure.
And so the Stars is just a
I still think the worst thing Lucas did with his Star Wars stuff is Return of the Jedi. All the additions to Jabba's palace to me are unspeakable.
In closing, speaking of Titanic, our most anticipated movies of this year, which, hey, maybe Titanic will get another re-release. They tend to do that every couple of years. Number 5, Deadpool 3. Number 4, Joker 2. Tied for second, Bad Boys 4. And Alien Alien Romulus from Fede Alvarez. And our number 1 most anticipated movie of 2024 is Dune Part 2.
Dunes.
Tunes.
With a dollar sign.
Gabe, are we gonna have any time for Godzilla, or can I just say something real quick?
Let's go ahead and throw to a break, and then on the other side we're gonna talk Rebel Moon, and then we should have a few minutes to talk Godzilla -1, some catch up from last year, but we'll catch you on the other side of this break.
And we are back. Okay, so it's January of 2024. And we had a couple of big shows that ended out 2023, including us doing our top 10 lists. But that meant there were a number of films that were released that we did not get a chance to comment on. We have seen a lot of comments asking us to talk about Zack Snyder's film Rebel Moon. So we're going to give you our Rebel Moon reviews, and we're going to do spoiler-filled conversation at this point now. The movie's been out for a long time. We're going to talk about it in depth. So feel free to proceed with caution if you still haven't seen part 1 of the 2-part saga. And you might want to skip ahead to our next thing. So anyway, Rebel Moon, Zack Snyder going to Netflix, creating what he is essentially calling his R-rated Star Wars, when in fact, I think he has created a PG-13 version of A Bug's Life. It's legitimately the exact same plot. I was stunned.
Which, to be fair, is Seven Samurai.
It is, without a doubt. But like the comparisons were like, you could not overlook, that Ed Skrein's character was essentially Hopper, from A Bug's Life. And then even when they had to go out and recruit like the other warriors, the bugs in A Bug's Life had more motivation for coming back to help the town than the warriors who were recruited by Sophia Botella in Rebel Moon. It's like I got really bored by the repetition of the structure of the story, which was they go to a new place. The new person who they are trying to recruit gets into a fight of some sort so that we see what their power is, and then they just join the rebellion. And then they move on to the next place. And then it's wash, rinse, repeat kind of thing. They meet another person. That person shows off their skill set. They join the rebellion, and then we all move on. And I was like, okay, if this is where we're going, but at least we're going to get a great, second half where all of these people who we're being introduced to is going to be a tremendous battle, back at the farmland of Velt, where these people have agreed to sign up and protect these folks. Well, no, that's wait till part 2. And by the end of the part 1, I was like, that was the longest setup, for a see at the next movie. than ever before. And what frustrates me the most is the narrative that came out after the fact of, oh, there's a much better version of this movie that you just had to watch. And it's R-rated and it fills in the gaps and a lot more characters and there's story arcs that you're missing. And Zack Snyder even saying things like along the lines of like, they're completely different movies. Well, show me that fucking movie. Like, what are we doing? And of all the people who should have learned a lesson by not being able to get your director's cut out in front of your fans instantly, I haven't heard a great argument yet by anybody in a position of power as to why they did this. If it was to get a PG-13 audience-friendly version out there in front of people because you were going to go theatrically with it, great. But they went to like 7 theaters. If even that, they might have went to less than 7 theaters. So it wasn't a push to reach a mainstream audience. And if you just want to give people the PG-13 option for them to potentially show to their kids on Netflix, we'll give the R-rated version at the same time. And let you choose, give you the choice on the streaming service. But then even at that, the PG-13 version, quote unquote, that's more mainstream and safer for families has like aggressive rape sequences and violent, deaths and political themes that are going to go over the heads of kids who are watching it anyway. Like, I don't view it as a family friendly movie anyway. So much about this release baffles me. But on top of that, it was just, I found it to be a kind of boring movie. Like I really wasn't that intrigued by the new characters who were introduced. They're played by, I like Sofia Boutella a lot, but when you're leaning on the likes of Charlie Hunnam and Ray Fisher and I don't know, countless other bland actors that, like, what I said at one point, I was like, this is really repetitive. It seems very formulaic. Where is the Princess Leia? Where is the Han Solo character? And someone yelled at me. They were like, oh, you just want him to regurgitate Star Wars. Well, no, I don't want him to regurgitate Star Wars, but I want characters that stand out in the ensemble.
But he did regurgitate Star Wars.
Oh, he does. Yes, he does. So go ahead. Take that angle.
I mean, look, it's you can't knock a filmmaker for being inspired by what they saw growing up, because that's literally what Star Wars is. Star Wars is George Lucas taking the serials that he loved as a kid and making his version of it. But they're so wildly different that while you can see the influences, Star Wars is still very much his creation. Rebel Moon feels like Zack Snyder going, well, I want a cantina scene too, and then just doing a cantina and saying, well, I like this in part of Seven Samurai, so I want to do that scene too. Well, it's like, well, no, you don't get to just, you don't get to trace over someone else. You can look at what they created, and hopefully it sparks, a fire of imagination within you to give us something fresh and new. But Sean, like you said, it took us 2 hours to get the team together, a team that is infinitely less interesting than all of Ocean's 11, a group that were brought together in 17 minutes? Took 17 minutes to get all of Ocean. You think we need one more? We need one more. Let's go get one more. Like, that's like, I could tell you more about those characters than any of these guys that we just spent all this time with. And look, I don't think the lack of Princess Leia or Han Solo was for a lack of trying. I think probably in his mind, he thinks that some of these characters are his Luke Skywalker, and it's just like, or his Darth Vader or whatever. I just, and every scene, and I saw the film before the narrative really started taking weight of the other version that was coming. But watching every scene, I kept thinking, oh, this is definitely a chopped down version of something else. Like there are some scenes, one involving like a Spider-Woman, where I was just like, who is this? Who is this character? Where did this character come from? Like, am I supposed to know who this person did I fall asleep at one point and miss the introduction of this character? Like, clearly it's a chopped down version, and they're trying to fabricate this phenomenon that quite frankly was born out of a tragedy. Like, the whole reason the Snyder Cut exists is because of this tragic thing that happened to Zack Snyder. And this other version of Justice League was forced to come about because of this very organic, real, genuine fan movement. You can't fake it. And a streamer, absolutely, like you said, John, can't fabricate that. If you have the movie, There it is. Put it out there. If anything, all they've done is ensure that I'm just going to I'm not even going to bother with part 2 until both versions are released. But if the point of this PG-13 version was to get me excited so that I could see the fresh version, they did the opposite. Like, now I'm going to have to drag myself back to watch the director's cut because I was left so lackluster with the version that I saw that I just sort of thought I guess I'll watch the director's cut.
And what's crazy is Zach's experiences with putting out theatrical cuts of his movies. He has openly said that those are disappointing versions of the movie. The original version of Batman versus Superman.
Okay, but Watchmen is great. The theatrical Watchmen, I think, has better edit beats than the director's cut. I think so.
Okay. I agree.
He wants to redo Sucker Punch. There's changes he wants to make to Sucker Punch at this point. I think 300 was pretty intact. I don't think he really messed with that much.
The theatrical with 300 was great.
Yeah, it's terrific. So, but I can't comprehend, knowing everything I know about Zach, why he would ever allow himself to be put into a position where an inferior cut would be the first step forward for a new universe that he wants to introduce, hoping that he could make enough noise in interviews of saying, well, there's a better version coming and my fans know to look out for that. And it's like, but no, if you drop a version that makes people less interested in the story you're telling, then they're not going to want to sit through that longer version. I'm baffled. I'm baffled by the release strategy around Rebel Moon, because to me, it just came across as pretty generic.
Yeah. I mean, I remember seeing it. I was weirdly bored by it, by a Zack Snyder movie. And I love Zack Snyder. And I mean, I'm somebody who grew up watching a lot of DVD features, as I've said on the show before. One of my favorite DVD features of all time was on Watchmen. It was this thing called like maximum movie mode, where he basically walks out onto the screen with the movie behind him and he talks you through the whole thing. And he's one of my favorite filmmakers. And I was, when you sit down and watch Rebel Moon, it's a carbon copy of Star Wars, but just a lesser version of it. It feels neutered in terms of its violence. Not that I want graphic violence on my screen, but what's happening in these scenes are graphic and warrant an R rating. Yeah, it's very frustrating, to be honest with you. I remember sitting there going like, what is this? What am I watching? Like, and listen, there's some good aspects to it. It's shot well. I mean, there's some good score. I also found that Hulkenberg did the score for it, I think, Junkie XL, which I think he's gotten away from that name now. I think it's just Tom Hulkenberg now. Brilliant composer, obviously Mad Max. But yeah, I was so underwhelmed, and so I remember leaving the theaters going, I felt just like numb to it. It didn't do anything for me. I'll say this. Yeah.
When part 2 comes out, I'll be first in line. Like I'm always going to go see a new Zack Snyder movie, you know, but like you guys are saying, it didn't leave me excited for where it's going to go.
Do you guys think they're going to drop this R-rated cut before part 2, or do you think they're going to let them?
I think they bring it. I think there's been such a, whatever it is that they thought was going to happen did not happen. I thought that they really expected that the Zack Snyder fandom, of which I think this show is a part of, was gonna embrace Rebel Moon way more than they did, and then be super jacked, be counting down to this, and that didn't happen. So I would not be surprised if they changed their mind and gave us the director's cut before part 2 comes out.
And then they should drop them both at the same time. For part 2. It's just, I mean, you guys have said enough. Baffling, I think, is the only word to describe it, for whatever reason they did. But to me, I felt like from early rumblings to release, the selling point for this movie was it's Star Wars, but we're doing things that Disney won't let you do.
And we're giving Snyder the outlet to do what he wants.
Yeah, and if you're giving me a carbon copy of something like Star Wars, a world that I love, but you're allowed to flavor that with R-rated subject matter, whether that's story or violence or whatever, it doesn't just have to be flashy things, but you're able to layer in, different genres that warrant an R rating. I mean, you can sell me on that. Like, I know Disney's not. I know the House of Mouse is not going to give me. Likely is to give me, R-rated Star Wars, but to then not do that. Yeah. I mean, you guys have said enough on it, but it's just.
public domain now.
Only Steamboat Willie.
Yes.
Only Steamboat Willie.
Only Steamboat
And I
Willie.
want to, before we close out this conversation, then Kev wants to talk about Godzilla. This is the biggest spoiler of all. Like we talk about this repeatedly on the show about movies that have no stakes. This movie legitimately kills off the big bad and revives him 5 minutes later. And then like he's set up to be the big bad in part 2. And I was like, what are we doing? I thought you were at least going to like tease up to, and I think there is a bigger threat looming, but it was like they revive him instantly and they're like, are you ready to go back in?
Looming Carrie Always?
Yeah, I think.
If you're going to scare me with a big bad.
Well, it's as much as Ed Norton in Alita Battle Angel.
I will give
it's
credit
like ridiculous
to Ed Screen, who I think is
I like
really
Ed Skrein
good
a
at
lot.
this. And he has a face on him that just, he's a really good villain. I mean, his Ajax in Deadpool. I live in an apartment building, and there's a guy that has a dog named Ajax, named after the character from Deadpool, not the dish soap, but the. Remember that line in Deadpool? He goes, "You're named after a dish soap." It's like one of my favorite lines. Because Ed Skrein is so like evil, and like Deadpool is just making these jokes. It's so great.
He's just an intimidating dude. He's an intimidating dude in person. Like we went to the set visit, went to the Rebel Moon set visit, and he was like in character while we were interviewing him, and he was just like chewing on an apple and like staring at us, like figuring us out kind of thing. And I was like, I'd like to leave. Can I leave for the day? This is uncomfortable. Kev, you got a chance to catch up with Godzilla -1, a movie that people were making a lot of noise about heading into the end of the year. I reviewed it. I said that I liked it a lot. I liked the human characteristics more than I liked the Godzilla stuff, which to me sometimes bordered on man in a rubber suit kind of thing. But you were blown away by it. So tell us what affected you the most about it.
Yeah, I didn't feel the man in the suit thing at all. So this movie came out on December 1st, I think. And you hear rumblings when a film becomes a viral thing. It's online. Everyone's talking about it. And you wonder, is it really that great? I mean, like I was putting together my top 10 list, and everyone's like, have you seen Godzilla -1? I'm like, I haven't had a chance, because that was the period of time where we were doing so many junkets and so many films that nobody had any time to do anything. And I'm not making excuses. I just didn't have a chance to go see it. And I'd already seen my Oppenheimer viewings before the film came out, so I don't want crap for that. But in terms of Godzilla -1, if I had seen this prior to my top 10, it'd be in my top 5. Like, it is, I think it's, first of all, it's the best Godzilla movie I've ever seen. I don't know if that's saying anything, but at the end of the day, two things. One, I think the Japanese language is so beautiful, and I love that this wasn't dubbed for American audiences. I'm glad the English subtitles are on the screen and we get to hear the actual language. For people who aren't aware of the story, it's based around a character who's a kamikaze pilot during World War II. He essentially doesn't do his duties, ends up on an island where Godzilla attacks, and then the World War II ends, and it's about the readjustment of the society into the post-war world, and then Godzilla obviously being a looming threat. Sean makes a point about the human story. To me, the whole film is a human story. Godzilla is part of the movie. He's the action set piece of the film. But what's brilliant about the film is that the narrative, emotional story makes the action and Godzilla that much more powerful. When you're in a scene with characters that you actually care about, that's been built by real narrative structure, actual good performances, not just BS lines that they give to actors so that Godzilla can show up in the next scene. Godzilla wasn't even really necessarily a thing that I was waiting for them to cut to in terms of the film. I was so blown away by the human story that Godzilla was like almost like a background idea.
Yep, I didn't need him.
But when Godzilla shows up, I'm telling you, man, I cried at the end of this film. I think it has so much to say. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody out there, and I think you'll get this, Sean, but there's a Dunkirk angle to this film that I thought was beautiful, that made me cry. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I get it.
it's a really beautiful story. And I really hope that people get a chance to see it. I know it's making a lot of money. It's one of the best films I've seen in a long time. And I just sat down in the theater. I was like, I'm going to go see this because everyone keeps telling me to see it. And it so far exceeded all my expectations. And there's stuff in that film that I've just been thinking about for days since I've seen it. It's really remarkable. I mean, the performances, and we all talk about this in the show. I don't know the exact budget. I think people have said 15 million. I don't know the exact details. I don't want to dive into that without knowing more information about it, but it looks amazing. I don't know how they did it for however budget it was done for. Like the way that they rebuilt the wreckage of the cities, and just the way, I mean, Sean, that third act is insane. It's insane how they did that whole, I mean, it was unbelievable.
I liked the stuff with
movie.
Godzilla in the ocean more. Like I felt like when he came out, when he was moving around the city, it felt a little bit, and again, not to fault it, you know, it's the budget.
I didn't feel that.
But again, I cared so much more about the characters. About the each arc for the individual characters was so gut wrenching that again, like as you said, whenever Godzilla showed up, I was a little bit like, all right, can we get back to the characters? I care a lot more about those stories.
But the human story informs the Godzilla moments. Like Godzilla becomes the emotional narrative that. Anyways, we'll move on. Everybody out there, go see it. Gabe, Jake, have you guys seen it yet?
I've not. No, I've got it is on the list. Got a lot of flack for it not being a part of my top 10. Haven't seen it yet, but I could very much see, you know, we talked in the last episode about, you know, our top 10s being sort of ever evolving things, and whenever we put them out there, they're just a snapshot of what they are in that moment. And I could see me looking back and saying, oh yeah, Godzilla, you know, because it very much is my kind of movie. But you know, anyone who, again, like Kevin said, not making excuses, but in the world of what we do, December is a lot of fun for the things that you are obligated to cover. But as someone who didn't get interview opportunities for it and didn't really have a lot of screening opportunities, it would have required me to sort of go out on my own and go find it, which December is not a month that allows for a lot of time to do stuff like that. So I haven't seen it, but it's on the list. Haven't even seen, I haven't seen the amount of TV I haven't seen. I didn't see Loki season 2. I haven't seen for as much stuff as we see, the amount of stuff we don't is
True Detective is coming up too. I've heard great things about True Detective.
It's like a horror story.
Yeah.
Gabe and Jake, if you guys have time,
I got a screener link.
I go see it at theater, man. It's the sound design is insane.
Listen, I'm going to be too busy with all my back-to-back screenings of The Beekeeper.
And we brought it full circle. Here we go. Now it's your time. Head to the comments down below. Let us know your most anticipated movie of the year. If you want to give us your top 3, give us your top 3 as well too. I like hearing about that. In the meantime, we'll be back next week with a brand new episode, and you can follow us in between new episodes of ReelBlend at Jake's Takes, at Kevin McCarthy TV, at Sean_O'Connell, at Gabe Kovac, and the show is at ReelBlend. If you're new to the show, first off, welcome. Thank you very much. Go back through our archives. We've got plenty of really great shows for you to catch up on. We are inching closer to episode number 300, which is a benchmark for us that we're very, very proud of. And we have a lot of cool guests that are in the hopper, a lot of If It Happens. So stay tuned here with ReelBlend. Welcome back to 2024, folks. We're really glad to have you with us. We've got a lot of cool things planned for this year. And hashtag if they happen. I don't know. What's our movie? What's our movie for 2024?
Man.
Dune.
Denis. We got it. I want Denis on this year. I want Greg Fraser on this year. I want more cinematographers on our show this year. We had Hoyt Van Hoytema last year for Oppenheimer. It was a remarkable conversation. We had so much fun. I would love to talk to more DPs on this show. And I think people like our DP interviews. I hear from people a lot. They're like, get more DPs, get more composers on your show. And obviously we're all working for our audience. We want to give you the best we can give you, but that's my hope for this year.
Despicable Me 4.
Or Janusz Kaminski for Krasinski's movie.